One of your responsibilities for Reading Olympics is writing trivia questions or practice questions that could be similar to the types of questions we'll hear on Reading Olympics night. In this video, I'm going to give you a brief overview of what the difference is between a well-written trivia question and a poorly written trivia question. Let's get started. So here are the basics. If you're going to write trivia questions, they should focus on things that are important to the story. And those important things are just like the things you talk about in your Reader's Workshop lessons. Important character traits, important details of the setting, and important plot points or important events of the story. Poorly written trivia questions are going to focus on the stuff that's not as important in those stories. Yes, no, or true, false questions will never be asked, so don't write any of those. We don't want to hear any questions about unimportant details like, what color was Jack's shirt on page 83? Nobody's going to remember that, and it's not important to the story. Opinion questions can be good questions, but not for trivia. We want something that has a definitive correct or incorrect answer. We don't want any questions that are going to have extremely long responses or multiple possible answers. And finally, we don't want any questions that you could answer without even having read the book. Let me show you a few examples. So we'll start off with a couple trivia questions about Coraline. A good example would be this first one here. In Coraline, what was the main thing that made Coraline's other mother look different than her real mother? And the answer to that, other mother had black button eyes. That's a key plot point in that story, and it defines. It might sound like this. In Coraline, did the other mother have black button eyes? Yes. We get the same type of information from those two questions, but the second one is a much easier question to answer. It's poorly written. We don't want any yes, no's, or true, falses. Here's a good example for Amari and the Knight brothers. What is different about Amari's supernatural ability? The answer, her supernatural ability is illegal, and that makes her an outcast when she joins the Bureau. It's an important plot point. It develops her character. A poorly written question might sound like this. In Amari and the Knight brothers, who is the main character? The answer, Amari. I could guess that if I didn't even read the book. Just from knowing the title, I could probably figure that out. We'll do another example here about Hate That Cat. In Hate That Cat, when does Jack start to like cats? Jack starts to like cats when he held his teacher's kitten. Again, important detail. The story is called Hate That Cat, but oh, spoiler alert, he eventually likes cats. A poorly written question. In Hate That Cat, there is a cat. True. Not a lot of effort went into that question. All right, here's our last example. A well-written question for Ground Zero. Why is Rashmina afraid for her brother Passoon? Passoon runs away to join the Taliban, and that's a big motivator for Rashmina in her part of the story. A poorly written question might sound like this. In Ground Zero, what are some character traits to describe Rashmina? Now, that's a great question on a test or something like that, or if it was a discussion question, that's a great question. But there's way too many possible answers for that to be a trivia question. On its own, it's a good question, but there's way too many possible answers. So for trivia, not so much. So I hope you see the difference here between a poorly written trivia question and a well-written trivia question. Make sure you keep these in mind and reference this video when you're writing your own practice questions for Reading Olympics. If you ever need help, just message me or Mr. Ellis.